The glint of gold, once a symbol of eternal love, twisted and crumpled in his fist, a sickening crunch that echoed the shattering of my soul. I had just delivered 8 beautiful, healthy girls, their tiny cries filling the sterile delivery room with the promise of new life. A fragile chorus that should have been met with boundless joy. My body was exhausted, a landscape of pain and triumph, but my heart was overflowing with a love so profound it eclipsed the agony of childbirth. I looked at him, expecting to see joy, pride, anything but the cold, hard fury that contorted his face, a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. He held up my wedding ring, now a mangled piece of metal, a grotesque parody of the sacred vows it once represented, and with a guttural roar, he crushed it further, the sound echoing the shattering of my soul. My vows, whispered promises of forever, turned into dust, scattered by the winds of his rage, a bitter testament to a love that had withered and died. Subscribe to our channel for more heart-wrenching stories that will make you believe in the power of justice. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a new video. 8 daughters, and all he saw was failure, a profound disappointment that fueled his monstrous cruelty. The nurses screamed, a flurry of shocked faces and desperate movements, but they were too late. The damage was done. My body, a vessel that had just brought 8 lives into the world, was now a broken mess, a testament to his monstrous cruelty. And in that profound, agonizing moment, I knew that my journey had just begun, a journey I would embark on alone, with 8 innocent lives depending solely on my shattered strength, their cries a silent accusation against the man who had just crushed not only my ring, but my very essence and on. Our wedding day was a dream, a sun-drenched tableau of white lace and whispered promises, a day that felt plucked from the pages of a fairy tale. He was everything I had ever wanted, strong, ambitious, and utterly devoted, or so I believed. He had slipped the ring onto my finger, a band of intricately woven gold, a family heirloom passed down through generations, and vowed to cherish me, to build a life with me, to fill our home with the laughter of children. He was from a family of old money, a lineage steeped in tradition, obsessed with male heirs, with carrying on the family name and expanding their vast industrial empire. I knew this, of course, but I believed our love was stronger than any tradition, any archaic expectation. He had assured me that times were changing, that a daughter would be just as cherished, just as celebrated, just as capable of carrying on the family legacy. I believed him. I believed in us. We embarked on our life together, a golden promise stretching out before us, a future filled with the warmth of family and the security of his love. We lived in a sprawling estate, surrounded by manicured gardens and silent servants, our lives a carefully curated tapestry of achievement and aspiration. From the very beginning, children were part of our blueprint. He spoke of a legacy, not just of wealth, but of a family, a dynasty that would carry our name into the future. He envisioned a large family, a vibrant household, filled with the energy of many children. A football team? He'd often joke, his eyes twinkling with a future I so desperately wanted to believe in. We had tried for years, enduring the silent heartbreak of negative tests, the whispered condolences of well-meaning friends. The fertility specialists had offered little hope, their clinical assessments painting a bleak picture. But we were fighters, or so I thought. We poured our considerable resources into the most advanced IVF treatments, clinging to every sliver of hope. And then the impossible happened. Not 1, not 2, but 8 tiny heartbeats flickered on the ultrasound screen, a symphony of life that defied all medical odds. The doctor, a seasoned professional, had gasped, her voice a mixture of awe and trepidation. "A miracle," she had whispered, her eyes wide. For a fleeting moment, his face had mirrored my own ecstatic disbelief, a genuine, unadulterated joy that I clung to like a lifeline. He had held me, his embrace tight, his voice thick with emotion as he repeated, our football team. We did it, NNBUT even then. In the midst of our shared euphoria, a subtle shift began, a barely perceptible tremor in the foundation of our grand design. His initial elation slowly began to curdle into a quiet anxiety, a simmering resentment that I initially dismissed as the natural fear of impending fatherhood. He became increasingly preoccupied with the logistics, the financial implications, the sheer scale of raising 8 children. His architectural mind, accustomed to order and control, seemed overwhelmed by the beautiful chaos that was about to descend upon us. He spent more and more time in his study, surrounded by blueprints and financial spreadsheets, the light burning late into the night. Our once intimate dinners became strained, punctuated by his distracted silences and my desperate attempts to rekindle the spark that seemed to be dimming. He started taking more business trips, his excuses becoming increasingly vague, his phone calls less frequent. When he was home, his touch, once so comforting and passionate, became perfunctory, almost clinical. I tried to talk to him, to bridge the growing chasm between us, to remind him of the dreams we had shared, of the love that had brought us to this miraculous point. But he would simply nod, offer a non-committal grunt, and retreat further into himself, his eyes distant, his thoughts miles away. The nursery, once a vibrant space filled with our shared hopes, began to feel cold and empty, despite the 8 meticulously arranged cribs. The whispers of doubt, once easily dismissed, grew louder, a discordant note in the symphony of my burgeoning motherhood. I told myself it was stress, the immense pressure of providing for such a large family. I clung to the image of the man who had held me, tears in his eyes, promising our football team. But the man who stood before me now was a stranger, his heart a fortress I could no longer penetrate. The grand design was fracturing, and I, alone, was left to pick up the pieces, carrying not just 8 lives, but the crushing weight of a love that was slowly, irrevocably dying. And as the pregnancy progressed, the unspoken demand for a son became a crushing weight, a suffocating blanket that smothered any remaining joy. Every doctor's visit, every ultrasound, was met with his intense scrutiny, his questions always centered on the gender. When the first ultrasound revealed a girl, his face had tightened, a flicker of disappointment crossing his features before he quickly masked it. "A daughter," he had said, his voice flat, devoid of any genuine warmth. "Well, we shall try again." The subsequent ultrasounds, each revealing another girl, were met with increasing frustration, then a simmering resentment that he barely bothered to conceal. He became distant, his conversations with me limited to curt instructions and financial arrangements for the impending births. He hired a team of nannies, a staff of nurses, a fleet of drivers, all to manage the arrival of his assets. He was preparing for their arrival, but not as a father. He was preparing as a CEO, managing a new and, in his eyes, unprofitable division of his empire. The grand mansion, once a symbol of our supposed love, became a monument to his escalating disappointment. He spent more and more time in his private study, surrounded by ledgers and legal documents, the light burning late into the night. Our once intimate dinners became strained, punctuated by his distracted silences and my desperate attempts to rekindle the spark that seemed to be dimming. He stopped touching my belly, stopped listening to their tiny heartbeats. The nursery, once a vibrant space filled with our shared hopes, began to feel cold and empty, despite the 8 meticulously arranged bassinets. The whispers of doubt, once easily dismissed, grew louder, a discordant note in the symphony of my burgeoning motherhood. I told myself it was stress, the immense pressure of providing for such a large family. I clung to the image of the man who had held me, tears in his eyes, promising our football team. But the man who stood before me now was a stranger, his heart a fortress I could no longer penetrate. The grand design was fracturing, and I, alone, was left to pick up the pieces, carrying not just 8 lives, but the crushing weight of a love that was slowly, irrevocably dying. Then came the day I found his will, not the one we had drafted together, the one that spoke of our shared future, and our children's inheritance. This was a new one, meticulously drawn up, leaving the vast majority of his fortune to a distant male cousin, with only a meager allowance for me and any female offspring. The truth, a bitter, icy wave, washed over me. He wasn't just distant. He was actively disengaged, building a life separate from mine, from ours. A life where our children were merely an inconvenient deviation from his meticulously planned legacy. The man I had married, the man who had promised forever, was a stranger, his true self unveiled in the cruel light of his betrayal. The grand design of our love story had not just fractured, it had imploded, leaving behind a wasteland of broken promises and shattered dreams. And in that moment, as the contractions grew stronger, I knew that the man I had married was gone, replaced by a stranger, a man capable of a cruelty that would forever haunt my soul. The crushing blow was not just the infidelity, but the cold, calculated indifference with which he delivered it. A final, devastating act of emotional violence that left me utterly, irrevocably alone. Section 3. The chorus of life and the symphony of rage NTHE delivery room became a crucible, a place where life and betrayal collided with brutal force. The labor was long and arduous, a marathon of pain that pushed my body to its absolute limits. Each contraction was a wave of fire, each push a desperate plea for release. But through the haze of agony, I held onto the thought of my babies, my 8 tiny miracles, their imminent arrival, the only beacon of hope in the darkness that had consumed my world. The medical team, a blur of masked faces and hushed voices, worked with practiced efficiency, their focus unwavering. And then they began to arrive, one by one, each a perfect miniature being, their first cries a fragile symphony of life that filled the sterile room. The sound was overwhelming, a chorus of new beginnings that should have been met with joyous celebration. I counted them, my heart swelling with an indescribable love, a fierce, protective instinct that eclipsed the pain of childbirth and the crushing weight of his betrayal. 8 babies, each one a unique masterpiece, a tiny reflection of the hope I still clung to. I held the first one, then the second, then the third, each moment a precious gift, a testament to the power of creation. NNBUT. My joy was short-lived, tainted by the chilling reality of his presence, or rather, his profound anger. He stood by the door, a statue of fury, his back to the bustling activity, his gaze fixed on a point on the wall just above my head. He hadn't moved since the last baby was born, his arms crossed over his chest, his face a mask of impenetrable coldness. He hadn't so much as glanced at the 8 bassinets lined up like a precious, fragile army, each one holding a piece of his own flesh and blood. My miracle, our miracle, had become his ultimate rejection, a silent, crushing blow that echoed in the sterile quiet. The nurses, accustomed to the joyous chaos of multiple births, exchanged uneasy glances, their pity a palpable thing that stung more than any accusation. They gently placed the babies in their bassinets, one by one, a line of innocent faces waiting for a father's touch that would never come. I tried to speak, to plead, to demand an explanation, but my voice was lost in the exhaustion and the overwhelming grief. He remained a statue, a cold, unmoving presence in the room, his scientific mind seemingly incapable of processing the emotional magnitude of the moment. He saw them as data points, as a complex biological experiment, not as his children. He had calculated the probabilities, the risks, the burdens, and in his cold, logical assessment, he had deemed them an unacceptable variable in his carefully constructed universe. His detachment was absolute, a wall of ice that no warmth could penetrate. The silence of his rejection was deafening, a stark contrast to the vibrant symphony of life that surrounded me. And in that profound, aching void, I knew with a certainty that pierced my soul that my journey had just begun, a journey I would embark on alone, with 8 innocent lives depending solely on my shattered strength, their cries a silent accusation against the man who slept peacefully, oblivious to the world he had just shattered. And then, with a guttural roar, he lunged, not at me, but at my hand, the one still bearing the golden band of our marriage. He ripped it from my finger, his grip like a vice, and held it up, his eyes blazing with a terrifying, unhinged fury. The glint of gold, once a symbol of eternal love, twisted and crumpled in his fist, a sickening crunch that echoed the shattering of my soul. He crushed it further, the sound echoing the shattering of my soul. My vows, whispered promises of forever, turned into dust, scattered by the winds of his rage, a bitter testament to a love that had withered and died. 8 daughters, and all he saw was failure, a profound disappointment that fueled his monstrous cruelty. The nurses screamed, a flurry of shocked faces and desperate movements, but they were too late. The damage was done. My body, a vessel that had just brought 8 lives into the world, was now a broken mess, a testament to his monstrous cruelty. And in that profound, agonizing moment, I knew that my journey had just begun, a journey I would embark on alone, with 8 innocent lives depending solely on my shattered strength, their cries, a silent accusation against the man who had just crushed not only my ring, but my very essence. He stormed out of the delivery room, leaving behind a silence heavier than any sound, a void that screamed louder than any cry. The mangled ring lay on the pristine white sheets, a stark reminder of the vows he had so carelessly broken, a grotesque symbol of a love that had been twisted and destroyed. My body ached, a dull throb that mirrored the searing pain in my heart. The weight of his broken promises settled upon me, a crushing burden that threatened to suffocate me, to drown me in a sea of despair. My vows, whispered promises of forever, turned into dust, scattered by the winds of his rage. 8 daughters, and all he saw was failure. The nurses, their faces etched with pity and concern, moved around me, their gentle hands tending to my broken body. They spoke in hushed tones, their words a soothing balm against the raw wound of my soul. They brought my daughters to me, one by one, their tiny bodies warm and fragile against my bruised skin. I held them close, their innocence a stark contrast to the brutality I had just endured. Their soft breathing, their tiny fingers curling around mine, were the only anchors in a world that had suddenly tilted on its axis. And in that profound, agonizing moment, a fierce, unyielding resolve ignited within me, and I would not let his cruelty define our lives. I would not let his brokenness shatter their futures. I would be their protector, their provider, their everything. I would raise them to be strong, independent women, women who would never be defined by a man's expectations, women who would never suffer the same fate as their mother. I would build a life for them, a life filled with love, warmth, and the unwavering knowledge that they were cherished and wanted. The decision was made, not with anger, but with a quiet, steely determination. I would leave him. I would take my daughters and disappear, severing all ties with the gilded cage that had become my prison. It would be a long and arduous journey, I knew, filled with challenges and hardships, but the thought of my 8 precious girls, their innocent faces trusting and vulnerable, gave me the courage I needed. I would fight for them. I would fight for our future. I would fight for a life free from the shadow of his rage. The shattered silence of the delivery room became the fertile ground for a new beginning, a beginning forged in pain, but fueled by an unbreakable maternal love. My cries, once silenced by his brutality, would now become the silent strength that would carry us forward, a testament to the resilience of a mother's heart. I would not just survive, I would thrive, and I would ensure that my daughters would too. The broken bones would heal, but the spirit, once shattered, would be reforged, stronger, and more resilient than ever before. And in that profound, agonizing moment, I knew that my journey had just begun, a a journey I would embark on alone, with 8 innocent lives depending solely on my shattered strength, their cries a silent accusation against the man who had just crushed not only my ring, but my very essence. Section 5. Forging a new path and the unseen scars and leaving him was not easy. My body was still healing, a patchwork of bruises and bandages, and my spirit was raw, exposed. But the thought of my daughters, their innocent faces trusting and vulnerable, propelled me forward. I planned my escape meticulously, in the quiet hours of the night, while he was away on one of his frequent business trips. I gathered what little I could, essentials for my babies, a few changes of clothes for myself. I left behind the grand mansion, the priceless antiques, the life of luxury that had become my gilded prison. It was a terrifying leap into the unknown, but the fierce love I felt for my 8 precious girls overshadowed any fear. I found refuge with a distant aunt, a kind woman who opened her small home and her even larger heart to us. I took on odd jobs, cleaning houses, sewing clothes, anything to put food on the table and keep a roof over our heads. It was a constant struggle, a relentless battle against poverty and prejudice. But with each small victory, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. My daughters were my motivation, their laughter my greatest reward. They grew, each one a unique and vibrant personality, their bond unbreakable, their spirits unyielding. They were bright, compassionate, and fiercely resilient, their spirits unyielding. They were a testament to the power of resilience, to the strength of a family forged in adversity, a family that had found warmth not in a blanket, but in the embrace of a loving community. But the scars remained unseen but deeply etched into my soul. The memory of his rage, the sound of my bones breaking, the chilling echo of his laughter, these were wounds that time could not fully heal. I would often wake in the dead of night, bathed in a cold sweat, the phantom pain of his blows a vivid reality. I saw the fear in my daughters' eyes sometimes, a fleeting shadow that reminded me of the trauma they had witnessed, even as newborns. I sought therapy, a safe space to process the trauma, to heal the unseen wounds. It was a long and painful process, but with each session I felt a little lighter, a little more whole. I learned to live with the scars, to see them not as symbols of my pain, but as testaments to my survival, to my strength. My daughters, too, carried their own unseen scars, the memory of their traumatic entry into the world. I encouraged them to speak about their feelings, to express their fears, to never let their voices be silenced. We healed together, a family bound not by blood alone, but by shared trauma and an unwavering commitment to love and support. The escape was not just physical, it was an escape from the psychological prison he had built, a journey towards emotional freedom and a life defined by our own terms, not his. And in that profound, agonizing moment, I knew that my journey had just begun, a journey I would embark on alone, with 8 innocent lives depending solely on my shattered strength, their cries a silent accusation against the man who had just crushed not only my ring, but my very essence. Section 6. The blossoming of strength and the unseen justice in years turned into decades, and my 8 daughters blossomed into remarkable young women, each a testament to their resilience and the unwavering love. They were bright, compassionate, and fiercely independent, their spirits unyielding. They pursued diverse paths, some becoming doctors, others artists, teachers, or advocates for social justice, each making their own unique mark on the world. Their laughter filled our home, now a vibrant hub of activity, with grandchildren running through the halls, a testament to the enduring power of family. They knew their story, of a father who had inflicted such cruelty, of a mother who had fought tirelessly to give them a life filled with love and opportunity. But instead of bitterness, it instilled in them a deep empathy, a profound understanding of the human condition, and an unwavering commitment to justice and kindness. They learned to find joy in the simple things, to cherish genuine connections, and to value the strength of family above all else. They were a symphony of voices, each one strong and clear, a stark contrast to the silenced cries of their infancy. They spoke out against injustice, advocated for the vulnerable, and used their experiences to inspire others. They became a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of the human spirit to overcome even the most profound trauma. My daughters, once silenced by my pain, now used their voices to create a better world, a world where no child would be born into such cruelty, where no mother would suffer in silence. Their resilience was a constant source of pride for me, a living testament to the strength that had blossomed from the ashes of my shattered dreams. The scars remained, but they were now badges of honor, symbols of survival, reminders of the battles we had fought and won. And in their vibrant lives, I found my own healing, my own redemption. The symphony of their voices, once silenced by my cries, now filled my world with a melody of hope and triumph. Occasionally, whispers of his life would reach me, carried on the wind like forgotten echoes. His once grand empire had begun to crumble, his ruthless tactics and cold calculations alienating even his most loyal associates. He had remarried, but his second marriage had ended in divorce, leaving him with no children, no true family. His life, once a grand performance, had become a lonely, desolate stage. He was a man consumed by his own emptiness, his life a hollow echo of what could have been. He had achieved material success, but at the cost of his soul, his relationships, his very humanity. He had chosen power over love, control over connection, and in doing so, he had lost everything that truly mattered. He was a ghost, haunting the periphery of a life he had once been a part of, a life that had moved on without him, thriving and flourishing in his absence. The echoes of the past, once painful reminders of his betrayal, now served as a stark contrast to the vibrant, joyful reality of our present. My children, once rejected, were now surrounded by love, their lives a testament to the power of a mother's unwavering devotion. They had built their own legacies, not of corporate empires, but of compassion, connection, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. The grand design he had abandoned had been rebuilt, brick by brick, with love as its foundation and resilience as its mortar. And in that rebuilding, a profound justice was found, not in retribution, but in the quiet triumph of a life well lived, a family deeply loved, and I never sought revenge, and never wished him ill. My focus was always on my daughters, on building a life for them that was filled with love and joy, a life free from the shadow of his cruelty. But justice, I learned, has a way of finding its own path, often in the most unexpected ways. His life, devoid of genuine connection, became a living testament to the emptiness of a soul consumed by anger and selfishness. His empire, built on a foundation of cold ambition, eventually crumbled, leaving him with nothing but the bitter taste of his own failures. He had wanted a legacy, an heir to carry on his name, but his name would now be synonymous with cruelty, with a profound lack of humanity. My daughters, on the other hand, carried a different legacy, a legacy of strength, of compassion, of unwavering love. They were the living embodiment of justice, their vibrant lives a stark contrast to his desolate existence. Their success, their happiness, their ability to love and connect deeply were the ultimate retribution, a silent, powerful testament to the triumph of good over evil. The unseen justice was not in his downfall, but in our rise, in the beautiful, thriving lives we had built from the ashes of his destruction. And in that profound realization, I found a peace that transcended all pain, a peace that affirmed the enduring power of love and the unwavering truth that justice, in its purest form, always finds its way. In Section 7, the enduring legacy and the triumph of love saw him again, many years later, at a public event where one of my daughters was being honored for her work in advocating for victims of domestic violence. He was a shadow of the man he once was, his once sharp features softened by age and etched with lines of profound regret. He sat alone in the back, a solitary figure in a crowd of joyous celebration. He looked at my daughter on the stage, her voice strong and clear as she spoke of resilience and healing, and then his gaze drifted to me, sitting in the front row, surrounded by my other children and grandchildren, a vibrant tapestry of love and connection. In his eyes, I saw a flicker of recognition, a pang of regret so deep it almost brought me to tears. He saw the family he had so carelessly discarded, the legacy he had so foolishly rejected. He saw the love, the joy, the connection he had so foolishly traded for a life of solitary ambition. He saw the vibrant lives he had chosen to abandon, and in their success, he saw his own profound failure. He tried to speak, his lips moving silently, but no words came out, only a choked sob that was quickly stifled. He turned and walked away, his shoulders slumped, his steps heavy, disappearing into the anonymity of the crowd. He didn't need to say anything. The justice was evident in the vibrant lives of my children, in the strength of our family, in the unwavering love that had blossomed from the ashes of his abandonment. My miracle had not lost its father. It had simply found a better path, a path illuminated by the unwavering light of a mother's love.